If you're thinking of fixing your body, watch this first. Because what happened to Lola didn't show up on Instagram. It showed up in the hospital. She chased the body everyone praised online, but ended up fighting for her life instead. This is the part they don't post. Hi besties, welcome back to my page. Now sit back, relax as I tell you the story of Lola. Lola was 28, and from the outside, her life looked carefully arranged, almost too perfect in a way that didn't invite questions. Her one-room apartment in Lagos carried a quiet discipline, everything had its place, and nothing dared fall out of line. The bed was always neatly spread, the sheets tucked in with precision. Her slippers sat side by side like obedient soldiers, never out of place. Even the small mirror on her wall hung straight, centered, and polished, reflecting a version of order she tried so hard to maintain. But beneath that order was something unsettled, something restless that no amount of neatness could fix. Every morning, that same mirror became her judge. Lola would stand in front of it in silence, turning slowly as if inspecting a body that didn't belong to her. Her eyes were sharp, unforgiving, searching for flaws no one else seemed to notice. Her waist, it was fine, but not small enough. Her hips, present, but not full enough to command attention. The moment Lola picked up her phone, her reality shifted. What was once a quiet room became a window into a louder, more glamorous world. She scrolled endlessly, her thumb moving with mechanical consistency as image after image filled her screen. Women with flawless bodies. Tiny waists that seemed sculpted by perfection. Curves that looked effortless, natural, almost unreal. They laughed in places she had never been, wore outfits she could not afford, and carried themselves like life had already chosen them. Lola didn't just watch, she studied. She zoomed in, paused videos, replayed transitions. Her eyes absorbed every detail while her mind made silent comparisons. The comments hit her the hardest. Body is bodying. Perfect shape. This is what men want. Those words didn't stay on the screen, they sank into her, slowly shaping her thoughts. Over time, she began to believe it. That maybe her life felt small not because of her circumstances, but because of her body. Lola owned a small salon down the street, tucked between a provision shop and a tailoring store. It wasn't flashy, but it was hers, built from years of quiet effort and patience. The walls were simple, the chairs slightly worn, but everything was clean, organized, and inviting. She braided hair with precision, fixed wigs with care, and treated each customer with calm respect. People liked her. They trusted her hands, her consistency, her quiet nature. But what they didn't see was the weight she carried after closing hours. When the last customer left and the shutters came down, Lola returned to her room and sat on her bed, counting money carefully. Every naira had a purpose. Transport. Rent. Feeding. But slowly, feeding began to lose its place. She would hesitate, then quietly move that portion into savings. Hunger became something she normalized, something she disguised as discipline. But deep down, it wasn't discipline, it was sacrifice for a dream she hadn't fully spoken out loud. Time moved, but Lola's world became smaller. Days turned into months, and months into years, all revolving around one silent goal. She stopped buying new clothes, convincing herself she would look better in them after. She stopped going out, telling herself there was no point yet. Even small joys, like treating herself to food or relaxing, began to feel unnecessary. Everything became postponed for a future version of herself she believed was worth waiting for. At night, her phone became more than just a device, it became an escape. Transformation videos filled her screen. Before and after clips that felt almost magical. Women who looked ordinary one moment and perfect the next. Lola watched with wide eyes, her heart beating faster each time. She imagined herself in those videos, standing confidently, admired, validated. One night, she whispered softly, "This could be me." And for the first time, it didn't feel like a distant fantasy. One night, deep in her endless scrolling, something caught her attention. A comment, simple, direct, almost casual. "Dr. Silva is the best in Lagos." No cap. Lola paused. Her thumb hovered over the screen as curiosity replaced distraction. She scrolled further. Another comment appeared. "He changed my life." Then another. Very discreet. No stress. Her heart began to beat faster, each word pulling her deeper into something she didn't fully understand. She clicked on the profile, expecting evidence, pictures, results, something convincing. But there was nothing. Just a private account and a phone number in the bio. No credentials. No reassurance. It didn't look professional, and it didn't feel safe. But to Lola, it felt like something hidden, something exclusive. And in her mind, hidden things often meant real results. Something inside her whispered that this was an opportunity she wasn't supposed to question. Her fingers hovered over her phone as doubt and desire fought silently within her. Something about it felt wrong, too easy, too quiet, too uncertain. But the louder voice in her head quickly drowned that out. This is how people find real plugs, she convinced herself. Finally, she typed the message. "Hello doctor, I need BBL. How much?" The reply came almost instantly, cold and direct. No greeting. No explanation. Just one line, full payment upfront. No deposit. No refund. Lola paused, her chest tightening slightly as a flicker of fear passed through her. But instead of stepping back, she leaned forward, because by then, she wasn't thinking about risk. She was thinking about results. When the price came, Lola didn't just read it, she felt it. It sat heavy in her chest, pressing against her breath. That amount wasn't just money. It was months of hunger. Years of saying "not now" to herself. Every time she chose savings over comfort, discipline over enjoyment, it was all there, staring back at her from her screen. For a brief moment, reality tried to break through. A quiet voice whispered, "What if this is a mistake?" But that voice was fragile, and it didn't stand a chance against everything she had built in her mind. The images returned immediately, louder and clearer. The bodies. The attention. The confidence. The life that seemed just one step away. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened her banking app. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears as she confirmed the transfer. And just like that, it was gone. Everything. No installment. No safety net. Just one irreversible decision. When the transaction completed, Lola stared at her screen, waiting to feel something, joy, relief, excitement. But instead, there was only silence. A deep, unsettling silence that settled into her chest like a warning she refused to hear. That night, sleep avoided her completely. Lola lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, her body still but her mind restless. Thoughts moved in circles, bumping into each other without settling. Excitement tried to rise, but fear kept interrupting it. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flashes, surgical lights, unfamiliar hands, unknown outcomes. She turned to one side, then the other, pulling her bedsheet closer like it could protect her from something she couldn't name. At some point in the darkness, she whispered softly, "Everything will be fine." It wasn't confidence, it was hope trying to survive. But her body told a different story. Her chest felt tight, her stomach uneasy. Deep down, beyond all the noise and desire, something didn't agree. Something new. But morning was already coming, and with it, a decision she couldn't undo. The next morning, Lagos was alive as always, horns blaring, people moving with purpose, voices rising and falling in familiar chaos. But Lola felt separate from it all, like she was moving through a different world entirely. She followed the address carefully, her steps slower than usual. With each turn, the environment began to change. The noise reduced. The movement faded. The streets became quieter, emptier, almost forgotten. By the time she reached her destination, something inside her had already shifted. The building stood there, silent and unwelcoming. A tall black gate blocked the entrance, offering no sign that life existed behind it. No hospital name. No activity. Just a small, fading inscription, "Please knock." Lola stopped in front of it, her body frozen. This didn't look right. It didn't feel right. Every instinct she had told her to turn around. But then reality hit her, her money was gone. Slowly, with trembling hands, she lifted her arm and knocked. The gate opened almost immediately, as if someone had been waiting for her. Lola's breath caught in her throat as she stepped back slightly. Standing in the doorway was a man, tall, still, and unsettlingly calm. His face was partially covered, hiding any expression that might have given her comfort. His eyes, however, said enough. They were cold. Detached. Empty of warmth. He didn't greet her. Didn't ask her name. Didn't explain anything. He simply looked at her and said, "Follow me." His voice was flat, without emotion. Lola hesitated for just a second, but then she stepped forward. The moment she crossed into the compound, the gate shut behind her with a finality that echoed in her chest. And just like that, she was inside, cut off from everything familiar. Lola followed the man through a narrow passage, her footsteps soft but loud in her own ears. She looked around, searching for signs of normalcy. Nurses. Patients. Reception. Something. But there was nothing. No voices. No movement. Just walls and stillness. The air carried a sharp chemical smell that made her uncomfortable. It lingered, sticking to her senses in a way she couldn't ignore. Her throat felt dry, her voice distant. She wanted to ask questions, so many questions, but fear held her back. The man didn't look back, didn't slow down. He moved with familiarity, like this routine was nothing new to him. And that realization made everything feel worse. When they entered the room, Lola immediately felt the emptiness. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional. The space lacked reassurance, lacked care. A single bed stood in the center. A tray of instruments rested nearby. A bright overhead light cast harsh shadows across the room. That was all. No certificates. No signs of professionalism. No proof that she was safe. A nurse entered quietly, her presence almost ghost-like. She handed Lola a blue hospital cloth without explanation. "Change," she said briefly. Her tone carried no warmth, no concern. Lola's chest tightened as fear rose again, stronger this time. But everything was moving too fast. Before she could gather her thoughts, the man turned to her and spoke again, this time with finality. "Lie down." Lola stood still for a moment, her body refusing to respond. Her mind screamed at her to stop, to leave, to run. Every part of her knew something was wrong. But another voice, quieter, but persistent, reminded her of what she had already lost. The money. The time. The sacrifices. Turning back now felt impossible. Slowly, she climbed onto the bed. Her hands were cold, her body tense. Her heart beat so fast it almost hurt. The man moved around her, preparing things without speaking. No explanation. No reassurance. Just silence and motion. That silence felt louder than any warning. Lola opened her mouth, ready to say something, anything, but before she could, he said one word. "Relax." And then, everything began to fade. When Lola woke up, the world felt distant. Her body was heavy, unfamiliar, like it belonged to someone else. Pain sat deep within her, dull but constant. For a moment, confusion clouded her mind. Then memory returned slowly, the clinic, the man, the procedure. Her breath hitched slightly as reality settled in. She tried to move, but pain stopped her immediately. It spread through her body, sharp and unwelcoming. The man appeared again, just as silent as before. He handed her something to drink without explanation. Days later, Lola was back in her apartment. Weak, but recovering. Slowly, as the swelling reduced, she began to notice changes. Real changes. Her waist looked smaller. Her hips looked fuller. Her body had transformed. The mirror, the same one that once judged her, now reflected something different. For the first time in a long while, Lola smiled. A real smile. "I did it," she whispered. It felt like everything she had endured, everything she had sacrificed, had finally paid off. In that moment, the fear faded into the background. The risk felt distant. All she could see was the result, and it felt worth it. Confidence came quickly, almost overwhelming in its intensity. Lola began dressing differently, clothes that hugged her body, outfits she would have once avoided. She posted her first picture online, her heart racing as she hit upload. Then she waited. The response was immediate. Likes. Comments. Messages. Body is bodying fire. You look amazing. Who did your work? Each notification fed something inside her that had been empty for too long. Outside, people noticed too. Eyes lingered longer. Conversations shifted. She felt seen. Desired. Important. And for the first time, Lola believed she had finally become the version of herself she had always imagined. It started so quietly that Lola almost dismissed it. One evening, as she was closing her salon, she noticed a faint smell. It wasn't strong enough to alarm her, just strange enough to linger in her thoughts. She paused, looking around carefully, checking the corners, the trash, the tools she had used throughout the day. Nothing seemed out of place. Everything was as clean and organized as always. After a moment, she shook it off, convincing herself it was nothing. But the next day, it returned. Stronger this time. More noticeable. Lola froze for a second, her nose wrinkling as she tried to locate the source. Again, she searched, carefully, thoroughly, but found nothing. And then, slowly, a thought crept into her mind. It was quiet at first, almost like a whisper she didn't want to hear. What if it's me? Her heart skipped slightly. She stood still, her breath shallow. No, it can't be, she murmured. But deep down, something had already begun to shift. Days passed, and the smell didn't leave. Instead, it grew stronger, more persistent. It followed her everywhere, into her salon, onto the streets, even into the privacy of her room. Lola became hyper-aware of herself. Every movement, every moment felt exposed. She sprayed perfume constantly, changed clothes more than necessary, cleaned obsessively, but nothing worked. Then one morning, everything changed. She felt it, a subtle wetness that didn't belong. Her body stiffened instantly. Fear rushed through her like a wave. Slowly, almost reluctantly, she walked to her mirror. Her hands trembled as she checked. And there it was. A small leakage. Unfamiliar. Wrong. Her breath caught in her throat as panic tightened around her chest. In that moment, denial broke completely. Something was very, very wrong. Lola's world didn't shatter loudly, it collapsed quietly, piece by piece. The confidence she had built disappeared almost overnight. She stopped going out as much. Her clothes changed again, this time chosen to hide rather than reveal. She stopped posting online. The same platform that once gave her validation now felt like a threat. Her thoughts became restless, overwhelming. What if someone notices? What if it gets worse? What if? The questions never stopped. Fear replaced excitement. Anxiety replaced pride. She found herself constantly checking, constantly worrying, unable to relax even for a moment. The life she had worked so hard to achieve began slipping through her fingers, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Desperation pushed her to act. She picked up her phone and called the number. Once. Twice. Again and again. Each time, her heart beat faster, her hope hanging on by a thread. But there was nothing. No answer. No response. Eventually, the line went off completely. Lola stared at her phone, disbelief washing over her. No, this can't be happening, she whispered, pacing her room. Her chest felt tight, her breathing uneven. The one person who was supposed to have answers had disappeared completely. And just like that, she was alone, with fear, with pain, and with a decision she could no longer undo. The next morning, Lola didn't hesitate. Fear drove her out of her room and into the streets. Her body felt weak, but her mind was desperate. She needed answers. She needed help. She followed the same route, her steps quicker this time, her heart pounding with urgency. But as she approached the street, something felt wrong. The atmosphere had changed. It was quieter than before. Emptier. Colder. And then she saw it, the gate. The same tall black gate. Unmoving. Silent. But this time, something was different. The gate was locked. Lola rushed forward, her hands shaking as she knocked hard against the metal. "Hello," she called out, her voice breaking slightly. No answer. She knocked again, louder this time, desperation creeping into every movement. Still nothing. The compound remained silent, lifeless, as if it had been abandoned long ago. She stepped back slowly, her breathing uneven as reality began to settle in. The writing on the gate was still there, faded, almost mocking. But everything else was gone. No movement. No presence. No proof that anyone had ever been there. And in that moment, Lola understood. She had been deceived. Completely. And now, she was alone with the consequences. Back in her room, Lola sat on her bed, motionless. The same room that once felt controlled now felt suffocating. The smell was still there. The leakage hadn't stopped. Everything was the same, but nothing felt normal anymore. Her phone lay beside her, useless now, offering no answers, no help. Slowly, she looked up at her mirror. The same mirror that once reflected her dreams now showed her something else entirely. Not beauty. Not confidence. But consequences. Tears filled her eyes as the weight of her choices settled deeply into her chest. "What have I done?" she whispered. And this time, there was no voice to comfort her. Lola refused to wait for things to get worse. Fear pushed her out again, into the busy streets of Lagos where life continued without her. People laughed, traded, argued, unaware of the storm she carried inside. She moved from one clinic to another, her voice low, her explanations broken, avoiding eye contact as shame wrapped around her words. Some doctors looked at her with concern. Others with quiet judgment. But none of that mattered to her. She just wanted a solution. Then finally, one doctor spoke the truth, slowly, carefully, like he understood the weight of his words. "What was injected into your body, we don't even know what it is." Lola's heart dropped instantly. Not knowing was worse than fear. It was uncertainty without limits. The test began. Long, uncomfortable, and draining. Lola found herself back on hospital beds, but this time, there were no secrets. No silence. Only truth. The results came back, and they carried a weight she wasn't prepared for. Something foreign had been placed inside her body, something her system was rejecting. The doctor explained it simply, but every word cut deep. The smell, an infection. The leakage, her body trying to break down what didn't belong. If we don't act fast, it can spread, he said. Spread. That word echoed in her mind, refusing to settle. All she had wanted was to feel beautiful. Now, she was fighting for something far more basic, her life. Treatment wasn't simple. It wasn't quick. And it definitely wasn't cheap. Lola lay on the hospital bed, unable to sit properly, as the doctor explained everything she would need: corrective surgery, medication, constant monitoring. Each word felt heavier than the last. This wasn't something that would just go away. It was something she had to fight through. But the hardest part wasn't even the pain, it was the cost. The same money she had spent chasing a dream was gone, and now she needed even more to fix what had been done. Money she didn't have. Money she had already sacrificed everything for. In that moment, reality hit her in its rawest form. Every decision has a price, and hers had doubled. For the first time, Lola didn't hold back. She broke down completely. Not the quiet tears she was used to, but deep, painful sobs that came from a place she couldn't control. Her body shook as everything she had been holding in finally poured out. I just wanted to feel beautiful, she cried, her voice weak and broken. But now, beauty didn't matter. Attention didn't matter. Validation didn't matter. All those things she once chased so desperately suddenly felt empty, meaningless. All she wanted now was something she had taken for granted: her health, her peace, her normal life. But life doesn't always give refunds. Some lessons come with scars. With no other option, Lola made another difficult decision. She returned home, looked around her salon, the same place that once gave her independence, pride, and stability, and made a choice that broke her heart. She sold everything. The chairs. The tools. The wigs. Piece by piece, her hard work disappeared. Every item she let go of carried a memory. Late nights. Early mornings. Loyal customers. Quiet victories. And now, all of it was gone, exchanged for a chance to fix a mistake. It wasn't just a financial loss. It was emotional. Personal. A reminder that sometimes, the price of one wrong step can erase years of effort. The hospital felt different this time. There were no secrets here. No silence filled with hidden danger. Everything was explained clearly: risks, procedures, recovery. But even with that transparency, fear still lived inside Lola. Not the same kind of fear as before, but deeper. More aware. As she lay on the operating table again, her mind was quiet, not because she was at peace, but because she had nothing left to argue with. This wasn't about beauty anymore. It was about survival. As the lights above blurred and her body slowly gave into the procedure, one thought stayed with her: if I get through this, I will never take myself for granted again. Recovery was not a straight path. It was slow, painful, and often frustrating. Some days felt better than others, but none of them were easy. Lola spent weeks moving carefully, living quietly, allowing her body to fight and rebuild. The energy she once used to chase perfection was now used just to heal. She stayed away from people. Away from noise. Away from everything that once defined her. The same girl who once craved attention now found comfort in silence. One evening, Lola stood in front of her mirror again. The same mirror. The same position. But everything else had changed. This time, she didn't rush. She didn't turn quickly or search for flaws. Her body carried scars now, visible reminders of everything she had been through. But instead of judgment, her phone buzzed beside her, pulling her attention briefly. Notifications. Social media. The same world that once influenced her so deeply. She picked it up slowly, her fingers familiar with the motion. She scrolled once, then stopped. For a moment, she just stared at the screen. Then, calmly, she turned it off and placed it down. Not out of anger. Not out of pain. But out of clarity. She didn't need it anymore, not in the way she once did. For the first time, Lola wasn't comparing herself. She wasn't chasing anything. She was simply choosing herself. Months later, Lola returned to her salon, not the same one, but a smaller space she managed to rebuild from what little she had left. It wasn't easy. People asked questions. Some whispered. Some stared longer than necessary. But this time, Lola didn't hide. She carried herself differently now. Not with the loud confidence she once tried to project, but with something quieter. Something stronger. She had faced something real, and survived it. And that kind of strength didn't need validation from anyone. When young girls came into her salon, talking excitedly about wanting to fix their bodies, Lola didn't stay silent anymore. She listened first, because she understood that desire. That feeling of not being enough. Then, gently, she shared her story. Not to scare them. Not to shame them. But to show them the truth behind the pictures, the comments, the illusion. Some listened carefully, their expressions changing. Others nodded but held onto their beliefs. And Lola understood that too. Because once upon a time, she had been exactly like them. Lola's life didn't turn into a perfect story. It didn't magically become easy or flawless. But it became something more important, it became honest. She found peace in small things again. In her work. In her space. In her growth. The attention she once craved no longer controlled her. Because she had learned something deeper. Something real. Not everything you see is true. Not everything that shines is safe. And not every transformation is a blessing. Lola stood in her salon one evening, watching the world move outside just like it always had. People chasing dreams. People chasing validation. People chasing versions of themselves they believed would make them happy. And she understood something clearly now, some of those paths lead forward, but others lead somewhere dangerous. People will risk everything, their health, their money, even their lives, just to become what the world celebrates. But the truth is simple, even if it's hard to accept. If you lose yourself trying to become someone else, you may not find your way back. And sometimes, the things we chase the hardest are the very things that break us.